Video starting? Yes, starting. Okay. So you see the title for this week. So in the 19th blessing of the 18th blessings. So the Shemona Esra. The 19th blessing is, of course, Ve'la Malshinim al Tehesikfa. And to those who are Malshinim, there should be no hope. How would you define Malshinim?
Snitches.
Snitches, yes, snitches is a good way to put it. Those who betray. So there's a ton of this bracha. This is a very controversial bracha. Let's just remind ourselves where the bracha starts. Much grab this one. Nice one. Right, this is the morning brachas. It's in Kof Ches on this. And there, it says the following thing, if I can find it. Yeah. Tanur Bonin. Shimon HaBakuli has their Yud Ches brachas Lifnei Rabban Gamliel. So, as it were, in conjunction with Rabban Gamliel, he put the Yud Ches brachas together. Right, so it's a whole big debate. This is really the formalization of tefillah. And as I think we mentioned in one of our previous years, Shirim, and that was a while back, but the Rambam seems to imply that they ultimately, or ideally, it should be completely spontaneous. However, you can understand all sorts of confusion with a curve, it's all spontaneous. So they wanted to have a set form of prayer. So Shimon HaBakuli, who sold apparently wool as his day job, then he put together Yud Ches brachas. And of course that was with Ruach HaKodesh. And at that point, Rabban Gamliel says, Yud Ches brachas Lifnei Rabban Gamliel, Al Seder b'Yavna, and Yavna, Omer lahem, Rabban Gamliel l'chom, as they said to the Chomim in Yavna, Klum yesh odam sheyodei l'taken birchas HaTzedukim. Is there anybody amongst us who, or there's nobody, I think it's hypothetically, who was able to do an extra bracha, the bracha for the Tzedukim? Now, in my research for this year, and it's quite extensive, I don't want to go for this because this is a very, very controversial piece of Judaism here. It should say minim, but this part, I think it says here actually in the Art Scroll Hebrew version.
Christians.
Yeah, so minim, then we'll get to that as well. But basically, it says here, one of the commentators say here that it should say minim, but because of the censor, it's just a censor word. We're still God, which is amazing. I don't know why they wouldn't take that out. But in the modern Gemaras, the modern Shas, and the modern Talmuds, and all to a larger degree, the censorship has been uncensored. But anyway, Tzedukim, okay. Omar Shmuel HaKohen, along came Shmuel HaKohen, who certainly had Ruach HaKodesh, and he made the 19th blessing. And then, of course, if you know the story after that, then he's standing in the Omer and he forgets it. So they wanted to say, he's an Apikaris. There's a whole big debate there.
We had a share.
Sorry? Did we
do? Share about that.
Yeah,
the guy can go bad.
Yeah, we did that, yeah.
That's Kohen Gadol that went bad.
That's right, Yochanan Kohen Gadol. So there's a Machlokes, Abaye and Rava, and that, if I remember rightly. Abaye says there was two different persons. Yochanan Kohen Gadol was not the Yochanan Kohen Gadol that we know about. It was Yanai, who was obviously became Greek, etc. So I'm not going to go there, but it's certainly controversial. And a lot of the commentators on the Seder go to great length in their commentary on the Seder saying this is not talking about Goyim. In the what's that big Seder? Mine's going completely blank. It's a Seder which is a big likud.
Rabbis?
No. It's I didn't even bring it down. Okay, fine. Did I? No. Anyway, so one of the commentators called Eitz Yosef there, he says, but this is not talking about non-Jewish nations and their religions. We would never consider criticizing anybody else's religion. In other words, it's not talking about Christians. Whereas I found another Seder, which I don't know where I picked this up. It's got my stamp in it. I must have bought it somewhere. Actually, I think it was an Almona gave me it from her husband. From some Hasidic Rebbe, I can't remember his name. And it's very, very scholarly. And he goes into this at great length that, the Christians were doing very well. It is really against Christians, but anybody in that era who was betraying us to the Romans, as you say, snitches.
No, we're worried about the Jewish Christians.
Sorry?
They're worried about the Jewish Christians.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So it's not a contradiction.
Well, no, it's not a contradiction. Fine. So therefore, this is the bracha, and it says, and they should have no hope at all. And all evil people should be wiped out. Just said this happened a few seconds ago, and your enemies, now swap from people that betray us to your enemies. We'll see why I said shortly. But Zedim Meheri, it's in the new category, Zedim Meheri to Aker, it's a Shaber, it's a Mager, to be uprooted, they should be smashed, and they should be I was looking for a good translation for Samago. How would you translate Samago? I wrote atomized. You'll see. You'll see. Regunned, zapped. But squished down or whatever. Baruch Hashem, Shovaronium Magnesium. That's what's going on here. Anyway, so they certainly should have no hope whatsoever. But that struck me as very strange. Does it strike you as strange? The reason it struck me as strange, let me tell you a story. I was thinking in shul. Of course, you should never be thinking in shul, but you know what happens. 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, and your mind's all over the place. Anyway, but basically, so this is a true story, but I'll change the details. When I was in Gateshead Yeshiva, Project Seed arrived in England, an import from the United States of America. Are you all familiar with Project Seed? Mm-hmm. And the idea, the original model, I'm not sure how it works now, but the original model of Project Seed was to take a bunch of boys from Yeshiva and go to Ochplotch in New Jersey or Kentucky or somewhere that nobody's ever heard of, and set up a base of medrash, and the shul will invite people to come in, and the boys, they got the deal was that they would rent cars for them, and they would go and, as Yeshiva Bochum do, crash them in the afternoons, and then did you do that? Anyway, so basically that was the idea. So Project Seed came to England, and when they came to England, in fact, somehow or other, I led the first seed project in England. I know this because they had their, if I was 50th, God, it can't be 50th, I'm not old, their 25th or 30th anniversary dinner, and he brought a brochure, and there's a picture of this skinny kid learning with somebody. This is Rabbi, why am I ruining this name? I didn't see myself as having put any weight. Anyway, but as a consequence of going to, this was in a small town, small English town, and then there was a couple there, and they were extremely brilliant people, and they decided they wanted to come and spend a Shabbos in Gateshead. Now there was, unsurprisingly, a Lubavitch couple already in that small town, but both were extraordinarily brilliant people. Both were Russians. And they had got out as refuseniks, and we're talking the time, so the 80s, 90s, and the Soviet Union is still alive and well. So they had gotten out. Both were extraordinarily brilliant. She was actually English, his wife was English. She was a superstar in Oxbridge. I mean, even I've got friends who were studying there at the same time, and when this lady came to study in one of the universities for a second degree from the other university, Oxford and Cambridge or something like that, joined at the hip but hate each other, the usual thing. So basically, she came with a stellar reputation. So they came to Gateshead, and because they were so brilliant, and they'd been studying the Lubavitchers. The Lubavitcher was teaching him Shulchan Aruch Harav, which is absolutely brilliant, by the way, and his Rebbe was teaching her Tanya. Hardly surprising. But because she was so incredibly brilliant, she was actually attending both shiurim simultaneously. Right. So she was. Well, then they came. I said to them, "Would you like to?" They wanted to learn with me. I said, "Would you like to learn how the halakha gets into the Shulchan Aruch Harav?" And they said yes. So I opened a piece of Gemara. I seem to remember it was Gittin, but maybe not. And I simply took a sugya, and I discussed incidentally this with the Rosh Yeshiva of Gateshead. Is this called teaching women halakha, which can be problematic? And he said, no, that's not called. Because what I did was I simply wanted to show the Gemara's argument and then reach the Muskan of the conclusion, take it, show it in the Reef, take it through the whole process, Rosh, Tur Shulchan Aruch, Kes Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch Harav, or Mishnah Berurah, etc. To see the evolution of a piece of Torah, which is fine. So and we got on very, very well indeed. And then somebody contacted me to tell me that there's a suspicion that he's actually a KGB spy. Because he'd been seen going into the Soviet embassy in London, which, once you get out, going back into the Soviet embassy for that was the... And so I wasn't terribly sure. I was a young man. I wouldn't be terribly sure today what I'd do if somebody came in and said, that guy comes to your shiur on Wednesday night. He actually works for the Chinese secret police. Really? Oh, that's nice. What do you do?
That's where Avi went.
Now we know why he's not here. Oh. Anyway, so I went to discuss it with Ramat Hasiyah. And he was completely unfazed. And he said, people have done tshuva for much worse things than that. Which is very interesting. So, but this is snitchers. These are, as you were saying, I have a very good friend who was the head of Project Seed in England, Rabbi Joey Grunfeld. Saddam was dying in London, based in. And I remember he went to the Soviet Union sort of like secretly, which is a bit ridiculous because he was engaged to a cow with a big long beard, and he's, you know, he looks pretty Jewish. Anyway, but when he went there, he went one morning to daven in the Great Synagogue in Moscow, and at the back of the shul, at a table not the size of this, instead of two, you know, they had 2 chairs, they had 4 chairs like this, and there's 4 guys there sitting wearing talis and tefillin, and each one had a phone in front of them. And as soon as somebody came in they didn't recognize, so they were called the stinkers, right? So these were Jews who worked for the KGB. But the idea is, to again repeat Ramatisel's words, so people have done tshuva for much worse things than snitching. And we don't want to go into the details, but sadly, I mean, just think of the word capo. And that's not snitching, but actually becoming complicit in the Holocaust. And sadly, there is a phenomenon of tiny amount of Jews who actually did that as well. So why should there be no hope for such people? That's really the question.
Is that different than Masira?
Hmm?
That's different than Masira?
Well, actually, rounding up Jews
What are
and...
they snitching?
Sorry?
What are they snitching?
Who? What case are we talking about?
Anyone, these people, KGB, what are they snitching?
Well, Jews are snitching to the KGB to get Jews into trouble.
That's Masira.
That's what Syria, yeah. That's what snitch is, yeah. You also have to do that in Malchinim. Oh, so let's see what the Vilna Gaon says.
Because Masira, they talk very strong about it.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm saying, but what? Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not in love with people who work for the KGB. What I'm trying to say is, but why should they have no hope? Isn't this tshuva for everything? We'll come to that in a second.
Is it like a mesis where we take away
Yeah, okay, but
Tzilo Eda type of thing?
yeah, I'm not sure. Well, let's develop this year, right? But at least you're with me in the problem, okay? So the Vilna Gaon Seder, you've got the parish of the Vilna Gaon here, and he says the following thing. I've got to read more or less this to you. V'lo Moshem he brocha brechas aminim. This is the brocha of the minim. Apikorsim. Shetikna Shmuel HaKotten b'Yavna. Shmuel HaKotten put together in Yavna, as we just saw from the Gemara and Brachos. V'tikna al Seder HaKosav. So when he put it together, what was the basis? How did he base this bracha, the words that we just read? How did he construct it? It was based on what Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishli, in Perik Vov, and Yud based to Tes Vov. So in 3 psukim there, then this was the blueprint for the 19th bracha of the Shemona Esrei. So what is that bracha? What is that? These psukim. So let me read to you. I've actually got it here, so it'll be easier to read. Bigger print. One gets to a certain age. And this is the Vilna Gaon's parish, which is different in Mishli to what it says here, but the same theme. Odom Bilial, and Odom is a Bilial, an Ish Oven, a man of iniquity. Bilial, how would you translate Bilial? So I was once saying Shirim I once went to Zurich to say Shirim. I was given to university students. Now I worked with 14 university students for 25 years. I was used to university students. Not until I got to Switzerland, I realised that this was a very different type of university student. They're all wearing suits. I mean, my students look as though they fell out of a garbage can. I mean, I just saw hair all over it. And they're all legs crossed, taking notes. My students never do that, etc. I was told under no circumstances speak in Yiddish. And so, of course, I accidentally did, which was a dreadful crime. But no, this is Zurich in Switzerland. However, I was very intrigued by the word fry. Right, so frum and fry. So frum means pious. Or supposed to. We mentioned before, Shlomo Volma says there is no word frumkeit. There's no Hebrew equivalent. Right? But fry, what does fry mean? I sadly think of Auschwitz. What was written on the gates of Auschwitz? Habe mach frei. Work sets your work, makes you free. Yeah. So a fry means free. So why does a person consider himself to be an unfree person? Free because they're free from the responsibilities of of the Torah. That's basically what fry comes from. Although when I was in Zurich, the reason I told the story in Zurich, it's interesting if you go to a men's room, you go to a toilet in Zurich, then the thing doesn't say engaged or vacant, it says frei. It's free, which means empty. Now that I liked. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can call yourself frei because you're empty, And what that means is you'll be filled up by everything else. In fact, Shlomo Melech says this in the first passage of Tehillim when he compares a non-free person to a moitz, a piece of straw that the wind blows. Right? He's free. He gets to travel and see the world. Whereas the tzaddik, he may indeed be like an 8-tal palagimayim planted by a stream, but you're not going anywhere. I got to see the world. You're stuck. To which you say, duh. What do you mean you get to see the world? You're blown. It's whatever is blowing in the wind. Starting to sound like a folk song. Whatever is blowing in the wind, that's the direction that you go in. You don't choose yourself. You're vacant. You're empty. And somebody's going to come along and fill you with their ideas. Fine. Anyway, so let's go over this again. So the basis of this bracha is these psukim here. Adam Belial, a free person. Ish Oven, person of iniquity. Holech Ikshus Peh, with a crooked lip, crooked smile. Koiretz Be'enav, winking. Moile Baraglov, shuffling his feet. Morbe Esbazav, pointing with his finger. That's the schnitzing thing. So schnitzing? Schnitzel. Yeah. And to Hufach's Beliboy, he's two-faced. What he says is not what he thinks. Choresh Ra, planning strategies of evil, because all day long. Midyanim Yishlach, and he's always trying to encourage machlokas and fighting. Al Kain Bisam Yava Edoi. At the end, his roots should be ripped up. Pesa Yishava in Marpe. And again, there's an implication here. Pesa Yishava should be broken up. The Ein Marpe, and nobody should cure him. Now that echoes to me that they've Altei Tikva. They shouldn't have any tikva. Let's see what the Vilna Gaon says on his Persian Mishnahs. So with those three ideas, or the three psukim, he brings three ideas. And he says, so he's looking to cause trouble all time. That's why he's going to die quickly. The first posuk really carries the idea of what Malshim are in it. They are not willing to accept the authority of heaven, and they like to be close to the government. And there's only a relationship between the two because it's mutually beneficial. He wants to get ahead in society, so he votes for. Sorry? Shh. We're having no politics at this table. Good. And therefore, in order to make themselves successful in the eyes of the government, of the governing party, they badmouth other Jews. I'm not one of those Jews. I'm a whatever sort of Jew it would be in any particular time, and I'm not saying anything, and you just be quiet. Okay. Lekarev hanol rishus, to give pleasure to the authorities, right? That they're able to get the Jews because they're being. Did you see that actually saying you're being naughty? But I saw in the newspaper, and there's a clip. Some Democrat was accused by a Jew in some public meeting of having dual loyalty, because he supported all of Donald Trump's, they're moving the embassy to Jerusalem. There's a guy called Netan apparently, Jerusalem, and the Iran deal. So he said, therefore you're guilty of dual loyalty. And the fellow says, I think this is good for America. But this was very much what you're trying to say. He's gone over to the camp of the anti-Israel Jew, which is very much like this. There's a ish of and chorish ra. That's what makes him a man of iniquity, a person who's planning bad stuff. And that's why he's got this twisted smile. In other words, it's not a genuine smile, because he's sneaky, he's pretending. And so on and so forth. Fine. So that's the sort of person we're talking about. But he goes on and says something a little bit further, which I found very interesting. This is something the Vilna Gaon says elsewhere. He quotes a passage from Yeshayahu and Zayin Kov. Varushaim kiyam nigrash, that Rishaim are like a stormy sea, or like a huge, stormy sea. I can't think of another word. Ashket lo yochla just cannot calm itself. It's just going all over the place. Bumps, like I suppose Nebuch has just been happening in the Bahamas. Al Kain Yagisha Miyov refuge for and it throws up all sorts of mud and all sorts of garbage because it can't control itself. Kavano soy ki harushaim ena roim beti. This is the thing that intrigued me. Listen to what God says. Let me say, is they're not actually evil in their nature. Since they are never at peace because of the jealousy of other people, then they've got to find an outlet for that, and the natural one is to inform us to the authorities. Fine.
So it's
So
just
jealousy leads to.
Oh yes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So it's not that they want to necessarily inform you; they want to ingratiate themselves. To the
That's right. Yeah.
It's not like a seer.
It's complicated, this, but yeah.
There's, I guess, some.
Yeah. Good. At the bottom here, there's another little essay on the subject. So the word Rishoim, it says that so they are people. I'm not sure if this is the Vilna Gaon or somebody else here. Who they're machta, they try to get other people into trouble. David Melech says, we mentioned this certainly a few months ago, in the first Psalm in Tehillim he says, Ashri Adam, Shelo Holach Ba'atzis Rishayim, B'derech Chatzayim Lo Omad, V'moshav Leitzim Lo Yoshel. So the Malbim says, what's the difference between, maybe you remember this, what's the difference between these three groups? Rosha, and a Chayta, and a Leitz. So he says, David Melech is telling you what the difference is. Asher Shelo Holach Ba'atzis Rishayim. A Rosha, like we're discussing here, has eitzes. He wants you to join him. He has an outlook. He's got a philosophy. He wants people to be part of his movement. That's a Rosha. A Chayta, this is a Chayta, he says, it's somebody who's a Baal Taiva, let's say. He's into this. So he goes to Beis Zionist and that sort of thing. He doesn't care if you go with. That's his Taiva, right? He just wants to engage in his time. He doesn't care if you like her, you don't like her. And the other one, he says, but a Leitz, he says, it's very interesting. A Leitz is just somebody says, like most Jews, says the Malbim. They stand around street corners, schmoozing all day long. Don't do a lot of bad, don't do a lot of good either. Those are the three differences. But a Rasha is somebody who wants to contaminate others, like we're talking about here.
What's the second one again?
So the Chayta is the Baal Taiva.
Chayta.
But the Leitz is just the ordinary sort of
Different.
yeah. V'kol oivecha, and then it says v'kol oivecha v'kol oive oimecha. So in our version it says v'kol oivecha, but there are different versions of this, and a lot, as we said before, a lot of the versions were changed and had to be changed because of censorship. But here v'kol oivecha, all your enemies, is the version we have. But other versions say v'kol oive amecha. So it's either your enemies, and I said to you, when we looked at that, I said to you, it seems to change from being our enemies, talking about people betray us, to people betray God. So here, he says something about, the king gives us Perish Rabbi Avram ben Agro. So Rabbi Avram ben Rambam, he puts Oive Amecha. However, called Oivecha HaKavona, why? So what's the argument here? He says there's no argument. A Kavona Achas, he ki Oive Yisrael, him Oive Hashem. It's the same idea. Because if you're an enemy of the Jewish people, if you're attacking the Jewish people, you aren't attacking God. It's an attack on God. The Rabbeinu Bachia, or Bachaya, as he was called when I was in Yeshiva. So the posuk is famous posuk in Bamidbar in Matthias. Nikmas b'nei Yisrael me'esim edunam. Go and fight a war of revenge on behalf of Bnei Yisrael. And afterwards you're going to be gouged, you people. Of course, Moshe famously changes it and says instead of a war of revenge and of vengeance for the Jewish people, which God said, he says a war of vengeance for Hashem. Okay. Nekamas b'nei Yisrael, this is what he says. Moshe Omar Nekamas Hashem. Omar Moshe LeKadosh Baruch Hashem. Moshe said to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbanu Shalom, Eloheinu Orenim, if we were uncircumcised, or Oved Avodah Zorah, or we worshipped idols, Lo Hoy Soidim Asad, the world wouldn't his. If we did this, behave the exact same as us, they wouldn't hate us. Why do they hate us? Because of the Torah and the mitzvahs that you gave us. So therefore, ultimately, it's not, you said it's a war of vengeance on our behalf. No, it's a war of vengeance on your behalf. That's why you change it around. They're interchangeable. If you're fighting against the Jewish people, ultimately, your war is against Hashem Yisborach. And if you think about today, Orthodox Jews who are, already under deep suspicion for being Trump supporters, by Jews, we are the bad guys. But ultimately, their whole moral, ethical agenda is antipathetic to the Torah. It's the antithesis of the Torah. So, no less a figure than Lord Sachs gave a whole lecture on this recently, somebody told me, that really it's an attack on the Torah. Right? All the values, husband and a wife, children, marriage for life, and all that sort of stuff. They just do not like this at all. This comes from God. We are advocates of it, but we believe He told us to do this stuff. Same idea. So the real question, again, to repeat the point of the shir is, but no matter, okay, so these guys have got bad midas, the guy's jealousy leads him to look to ingratiate himself. He's almost a pitiful, pathetic person, crawling to the rulers, I'm a nice Jew. There was such a thing as a court Jew. The king held a court Jew who would entertain the king, and rather pitiful people. Good. But why is this such a big deal? Mesil Shishorim and Peri Dalad, another thing we quoted not too long ago, he's talking about Midas Arachmim of Hashem Yisborach. What is the Midas Arachmim? How would you quantify? What metric would you attach to the Midas Arachmim of Hashem Yisborach? Infinite. His Rachmim is infinite. Im kein Midas Arachmim lama, why do we have Midas Arachmim? Hiu Medas, Kevin Sha'al Kol Ponim, Tzorach Ledaktiv, Bedin Al Kol Dover. As a report in Rosh Hashanah, it's good to think about this. But Hashem doesn't let you off. Everything that you've done wrong has to be appraised and dealt with. It's like somebody who's got something wrong with them. If you went to the doctor and he suspected it was the beginning of a tumor, would you like him to ignore it, or would you want him to deal with it and do an investigation, have it cut out, or radiotherapy, chemotherapy, whatever is appropriate? Because but if you do tshuva, then it's gone anyway. So you've removed it yourself, but it has to be removed. So therefore, if that's true? How does rachamim come into this? And he says, Adam Achaveri, somebody who kills his friend, Harishanav, or commits adultery. I mean, how can you put that right? This is a reality. You've either brought a life into the world that shouldn't be here, or you've taken a life from the world that should be here. And so you're sorry. Big deal. There's a corpse there, or a baby crying in a stroller, whom you and both of your responsibilities. You're sorry, fine. Very guilty, you're sorry, but what are you going to do about that? Can you regret, remove a reality? But Midas Rachmim is given to be, as it were, the opposite of the Midas Din ideas that he was talking about before. What does he do? He gives time for a person to do tshuva. He doesn't wipe you out immediately. Did something wrong, a lightning bolt gets you. And if he does punish you, it's not actually wiping you out, it's stage by stage as things go wrong, and in order to get you to do tshuva. And tshuva is given as a chesed gomer, and then jumping a little bit, the Hashem's perspective is that if you consider, if you've really done teshuvah, even though there's a reality, there's things you've done and created as a consequence of your previous perspective and mindset and actions, but now that you've changed, then the person who killed that person, or the person who created that baby, merely is your doppelganger. He looks like you, but that person doesn't exist anymore. Akiras harotzain, akiras amaisa. It's wonderful. So if I was a really bad person who'd done any of these things, murdered somebody, committed adultery, produced the mams of Rahman and Islam, I would be sure. Don't know how you deal with all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is rather cheery. You know what? There is tshuva for everything. We consider murder pretty serious, adultery pretty serious, but there's tshuva for that as well. So why should be no hope for the guy who snitched to the authorities?
Because that guy's no hope for it.
Sorry?
The only thing to do tshuva to be someone else.
I'll go and say that again.
We said that if you do tshuva, you're a different person.
Right.
So.
Oh, you're only talking to the person who does. Okay, but if he's got no hope, then he might not get to the tshuva.
Fine, but we still don't want him.
Okay. This is when I was coming back last week from California on the plane, because we had quite a chunk of the Sefer Or Hatzofen. Or Hatzofen's a wonderful Sefer. Have you come across Or Hatzofen? So the Alta from Slobodka was from Nosson Zvi Finkel. The Chofetz Chaim Nix, this is their big Sefer. They love it. This is a wonderful Sefer. It's out of print at the moment, which I can't believe. It's absolute gold. And so he talks about three famous people, Noach, Avram, and Moshe's reaction to bad people. Okay? So I'm going to read a little bit together. Hine Noach, im kol hakorosei bedarchi chesed shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who clearly recognized the chesed of Hashem Yisborach, kalape b'Yosef, and his chesed not just towards human beings, but animals as well, im kol halichosei be'osim adrachim shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he copied and walked in the ways of Hashem. Noach, Tom, Ish Tzadik, Oyev B'Yosef. V'adayin lo hisig osim mekol ha'kefes amukah, sheish mokum l'rachmei Hashem gam al harashayim hagamurim. But he didn't reach the real depths and understanding of Hashem's chesed. Hashem's chesed achieves or touches or envelops even Rashayim Gamurim, applies to them as well. Even though that the Gzar Din had been set in Shemayim, that the entire world should be drowned and finished. When Hashem told him about this, well, he didn't try and stop that. He did what he was told. He built the ark, 120 years, he told him what was happening. But when, as it were, the time was up, he didn't fight and say, yeah, okay, there's a Gzar Din, but maybe you can change the Gzar Din. But Avram Avinu did. Avram Avinu did by Sodom. But, he says, amazingly, the Medrash Rabbah says, Omer Rabbi Lozer, Avram lo osa b'shleimus. Much better than Noach. Avram does intervene, but it wasn't b'shleimus. Why? Because what was Avram's argument to save the Rishayim in Sodom? Because Tzaddikim. That means to say that in the schus of the Tzaddikim, the Rishayim should be saved. But without, therefore, it's for the Tzaddikim you're doing that. Rabbi Dess has got a wonderful essay on why that works. Barak Moshe, only Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu, Yored la'omkam l'sofen shel midas ha'chesed shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. Only he realized and reached a proper understanding, or complete understanding, I should say, of the chesed of Hashem Yisborach, that it applies even though there's been a Gzar Din, and it applies to people who complete Rishayim. Sorry, coming to that. Even if there's already a din kalia of complete extermination, more than that, he was willing to give up his own life for every single one of the Jews after the golden calf. Me and 100 like me should die, but not one fingernail of them should be harmed. Phew. Devorim Rabbah, I'm never come across that medrash till it's worth flying from California just for that. And he didn't budge until Hashem said, okay, I forgive them. That was the correct approach. Now that's pretty big. Now if if Chazal see that as being the thing to do, the perspective to have, then how does that 19th bracha come into being when they should have no hope whatsoever? Who never gets any hope? Let me read on, come to your point. When we stand in a few weeks' time from now on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, B'fnei Yom Adin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gil alon and shekol boy olam ovrim lefonav k'bnei Morin, and Hashem makes it clear to us that we're all kol b'nei, everybody is being judged. Chayv Rabbah maintenance the reishis kol. The very important, essential first step is Al mi shechoshev sheyotz zakai bedin v'yiktav ela alta b'sofren shel tzadikim gemurim. She is spal. If you want to be put in the book of tzadikim, she is spal al kol b'nei adam. You should daven. Listen to this. I nearly fell off my seat, and I was strapped in the airplane. She is spal al kol b'nei adam. You should daven for every human being. La Rabbis and ochrim, including the non-Jewish world, because shkein am b'nei Yisrael. And not the goodies, for the baddies as well. And for the baddies as well. I find this very exciting.
We say the opposite. We say, oh, we should, I need to say,
well, let me read on then. Okay. So Hashem yasa oisem chesed, Hashem should do chesed, v'yirachem alehem, v'yuz alehem gazeres toivet, v'yatzil oisem mikol haparanis, v'srakshus lavolo oilam, v'al achos kama v'kama anachlim batzmein. Of course, you should hope the same for yourself. Shein yadim eich ono nechshum letnei amakim. We don't know how we're considered in front of Hashem. Remember the famous many Gemaras on the subject of who's deciding, who's not deciding. So if that is a perspective, without going into in huge depth, then why doesn't the perspective apply here? Sifsi Chaim Friedlander, in his beautiful sefer, it's quite a discussed, incidentally. This sefer, when it first came out in Gateside Yeshiva during Elul, that was in every desk. Everybody bought this sefer. That was quite discussed. He talks about the story of Rabbi Loza ben Durdai, and this is worth remembering. So Loza ben Durdai, famous Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Tanya Omer Alava Rabbi Loza ben Durdai. So the Chazal tell the story about Rabbi Loza ben Durdai. Shelo haniach zayna achas ba'alam shelo ba'aleha. There didn't exist a prostitute, a zayna, whom he had not visited professionally. Pam achas. Now I take it it must mean in his immediate area, the tri-state area. Pam achas shama sheyesh zayna achas b'kichrei yom. There was the particular woman who lived overseas. V'hoisan telas kis dinorim b'shkara, who took a kiss of dinorim, of silver coins. I held one of those. Have you been to the Living Torah Museum in Brooklyn? Go. Fabulous. And you want to hold a dinar in your hands, see what a dinar looks like? He's collected all the coins. He took them to Rabbi Ashev, and Ashev bought a set of his coins. And he says, do you have to go? He wanted to give it to him, but Son of Matanas Yichei said Rabbi Ashev. So he bought it for whatever small price he paid. When his son-in-law heard about this, Reb Chaim, he wanted a set as well. So he says, do you have to go? No. So he just did this. He said, for 15 minutes, the rabbi in charge of it, Rabbi Deutsch. And after 15 minutes, he said, I've now understand and can paskin 40 halachas, which I've never been able to paskin before. One of them was incredible. It was either a dinar, I can't remember where it's a Pritz of shop. There's two coins which are more or less the same size. And the Chofetz Chaim says that it's interesting halacha, to be yotze in the Havdalah of seeing the candlelight, it has to be the distance where you can't tell the difference between the two coins. And the Chofetz Chaim apparently writes in the Mishnah Berurah, which I don't remember, saying, I don't know what that is. I can't pass on the halacha because I don't know what that is. So he said to me, here, these are the two coins. He took them. So he said, can you see them? He said, yes. Tell me when you can't see them. You can't see the detail. You can't distinguish them. So if you're interested, it's that length. So according to the halacha says you've got to be that near the flame. You've got to have that hana from the flame to be able to fulfill the Barei Mara'ish. Because we know, especially you go to the Shabbatons and stuff like that, there's a guy with a guitar in the middle and you're about 20-year-old back, so no, it's not good. You have to do it. You get, but interesting. Well worth going to see. Okay, Labal ben Durdai. So she took a kis dinorim. That's a huge amount of money for her services. And you all know the story here that he goes there. He has to go across rivers and all sorts of put himself in incredible danger. Eventually, he pays the money. He's just about to do the avera for the nth amount of time, when suddenly she loses control of her bodily functions and makes, as my father-in-law said recently, a bodily noise. He's 93, still sharp-ish, and that was that. And then she says, the same way as this flatulence will never return to the place it came from. They usually translate that nicely as a wind blew. flatulence. Same as it will never go back to the place that it came from. Allah's ben Derdoy will never accept you if you do teshuvah. So he says here something very, very interesting. I can honestly tell you I've never been introduced to a lady of that persuasion, so I don't know any of them. But I kind of suspect there are very few who've got PhDs in theology. When this happens, she goes, you can only see the thumb going, just like this flatulence will never go back to where it came from. Allah's ben Derdoy will never accept you, teshuvah. Right? And she didn't say you never do teshuvah, she said they'll never accept you, do teshuvah. And interesting, the word Elazar ben Derdoy. So Chaim Friedlander quotes the Morale of Prague, and he says that wasn't his name. It described him. And we have this is a shita of the Morale of Prague. We mentioned this when we talked about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. That wasn't their names. It was the description. Kamit says to take a little from a large, to take away from the largeness, the unity of the Jewish people. Elazar means, what does Elazar mean? El-Azar. God helps. Derdoy is the word for the sort of garbage that floats to the top of wine, the scum that floats to the top. When you are making whiskey or beer, sediment at the bottom, whatever it is, that sort of stuff, right? The ich is just thrown away. He was a Elazar ben Derdoy, but even though he was a Elazar ben Derdoy, then he was a Elazar as a son of Derdoy, came from the Derdoy. At that moment of ichiness, and when she said they'll never accept, where did those words come from? Hashem put those words into her mouth. So she would say that, exactly the words he needed to hear. Not that you won't do tshuva. That wouldn't have worked for him. But when he heard her say, they'll never accept you do tshuva. And of course he runs away, does tshuva, and leaves Elazar ben Derdoy. That's a lot for a really disgusting human being for Hashem to do. So why is it that these people who are, as Ramatasio said again, people have done a lot worse than that. It doesn't make them tzaddikim, don't get me wrong.
He was in the second category.
Who?
He was a chayte.
Who was the chayte?
This fellow,
Elazar ben Derdoy, yeah, true. But I'm saying that if Hashem is there for you, want to say, okay, so for Russia, maybe Hashem wouldn't be there for you? This is another Gemara. The Gemara in Brachos. So you should never ever, where's this Gemara? Never give up the hope of having being saved by Hashem even to the last second of your life. Hiskiel, that's right. Even if your head's on the chopping block. I told you about this, somebody I admired enormously who was not only in Auschwitz, was in the gas chambers in Auschwitz. I told you that story? There was I used to broadcast on BBC Radio, and their big program of the morning, the news program, is called the Today program, and it's a 3-hour program. And it's big. I mean, the Queen listens to this, the Prime Minister listens. That's what's happening. It's all the people come on and make their speeches and give their pitches and spiels. And I used to have a slot on that. And I told the story once about somebody called Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Wise, whose son's a friend of mine who lives in Williamsburg. And he was in Hungarian. At the age of 17, he ended up in Auschwitz. He was already in Auschwitz. It wasn't that they took them to the gas chamber straight away, but one day they were marched down to be gassed. They knew exactly what was happening. And they were standing there in the gas chambers, having stripped. The door closes, and he's standing next to another Hasidic guy. And he says, do you think Hashem could save us even now? And he says, yes, just like Mitzrayim. Yeshua Hashem Kehervain. The door opened. They needed 2 versions of the story. I can't remember which one is exactly right. Either there was a mistake, it was another barracks due for gassing that day, so they marched him out, or they were looking for tall guys, very tall, for some substitute, 3 of them out of the gas chambers, and he was one of them. So there was a horrible case of a Holocaust denier, famous historian, his name's going out of my mind for the moment, and there was a court case going on. So when I broadcast this, I immediately was contacted. But it was a Jewish lady who's a historian here, and he sued her. He sued her because she called him a Nazi, and because he is a Holocaust denier. And so the defense was looking for people who had been in Auschwitz to say, of course it happened, but when they heard me say this, there was actually somebody who was in the gas chambers in Auschwitz, which they went crazy. Why are we saying that? Why was I telling you that story? What we talked about before? Can't remember. The answer. Anyway, the answer, again, to go back to the Vilna Gaon, is there. The Vilna Gaon says the following thing. and to Malshinim, the people we've described, etc., are doing indeed lots of terrible stuff. They are Rishayim, etc. What does it mean, Al Tifa? It seems to be that he embraces my, because Vilna Gaon is very stark, but he embraces my concern and he says, Ma Shehema Mekavim. What it means they should have no hope, that their plans come about. Again, Ma Shehema Mekavim, that they're planning to do. With their falseness and their two faces when they pick up the phone to say somebody's come into the shul, the line's disconnected or whatever, they're not interested at the other side, etc. That's what we're talking about. But to say that a Jew is never going to have hope, don't know. Remember we learned the Gemara in Tainus Kaf Gimel? Famously tells the story. This was, remember we talked about Choni Amagel. Yeah? And then there was Abba Chelkia. So he also used to be able to make rain come. And if you remember, the two rabbis come and they got upstairs quietly, they go upstairs to the roof and they daven. And the rain comes only first of all, in the woman's, in his wife's side of the roof. So remember, we did this as a whole shir. Why did it fall on her side? So the Gemara says, Hine Baryoni, the Haba Bishavusan. There was a bunch of Baryonim, the English translation of that as well here, it said boors, but in actual fact, Rashi means ruffians, right? Ona boy rachmi de la missile. Says Abba Chelke, I daven they should die. That would solve my problems, screaming and shouting at night, throwing bottles of beer and stuff. Vehi boy rachmi de la hadra b'tshuva. And she daven they should do tshuva, and they take it in tshuva. Right? So the idea of davening for somebody to do teshuva, for that, rain fell that saved the entire Jewish people. In Herzichus, we always want people to do teshuva. As Ramatzah said, okay, so maybe the guy is a KGB. People have done teshuva for much worse than that. The Vilna Gaon says, it's because of their plots not coming about, we say there should be no hope. But not that no Jew has any hope. There's teshuva for everything, teshuva at any time, even at the last minute of your life. Every Jew has hope.